You want to know the best fantasy football draft approach in all of 2023 fantasy football? Do you want to know my favorite technique? How to dominate your entire league in the first 3 rounds of your draft. This is my favorite draft approach to absolutely annihilate your competition in 2023 fantasy football. The Fantasy Football Show begins right now.
This is the Fantasy Football Show with your host, Smitty.
Take a lap.
If you're given the 1, the 2, or the 3 pick, Jamar Chase is your target with this approach. You may have JJ as your number 1 wide receiver. Some might even have Cooper Kupp. And to be honest, it's pretty ridiculous to squabble over who's the number 1 wide receiver. You like JJ, fine. You like Kupp, I'm not going to argue with you. But this approach is about stacking Jamar and Burrow together. And if I'm given the 1.1 and I can't trade down, let's call it a redraft league, with a bunch of petrified Peters and they don't want to trade, I'd take Chase number 1.1, wouldn't even hesitate. I don't care what anybody thinks. Jamar Chase is my number 1 wide receiver. Yeah, Cousins did really well last year, but I trust Joe Burrow, my QB1 in 2023 and beyond. Jamar Chase has an advantage over JJ. In my mind, he's my 1.1 or 1.2 or 1.3. This draft strategy works for anybody holding the 1, 2, or 3 pick. You could kind of argue for whatever, but the thinking is you get Bijan and you get Joe Burrow in round 2 and round 3. And I'm going to go over the different ways to get this stack done, but essentially it is, let's say you get the 1.1 pick, you take Jamar Chase.
Whoa, people get mad.
Let him. You take Jamar Chase at 1. Joseph Cigar Smoking Burrow, you take at the 24 pick. You've got the 1 pick. That means you got the 24 and the 25. You got the bookend round 2, round 3 picks. So Bijan would be your 3.1. Bijan might not fall to 3.1. In fact, it's fairy tale territory come August, especially the first week in September when everybody's doing their final drafts. Bijan's going to climb up to round 1. You heard me right. Bijan will climb to round 1. Part of it will be because of us. Oh, Smitty, you're so arrogant. You think that your community, your mock draft community, dictates ADP? You're absolutely right. We move ADP data, in my opinion, more than any community in fantasy football. We mock draft more than anybody, which has a cascading effect when the live streams are done because you guys continue to mock draft. We manipulate data very hardcore on the platforms we mock draft on. Oh, but Smitty, a lot of people mock draft. When we mock draft, we do 4, 5, 6 mock drafts in one sitting every night practically during the months of June, July, and August, sometimes even March, April, May. We affect ADP. I beg you all to not take Bijan any earlier than you have to. I hope you all listen to me, because if you all start drafting Bijan where I say he's going to be eventually, where I believe his value actually should be, Bijan to me, you're about to make a number 2 in your pants right now. Bijan to me will finish as the number 2 or number 1 running back in 2023 as a rookie. Watch my top 10 running back ranking video, part 1 right here for Bijan Robinson, and why I have him as my number 2 redraft running back, not drafting him there. Don't draft him there. There's a difference between me being predictive, telling you where I think Bijan finishes, the end result. There's a difference between that and drafting. If you take my advice of Bijan being number 2 and you go draft him number 2 or 1 out of all RBs in 2023 redraft, you're not paying attention. Eventually, he will climb into round 1 value, which will be borderline running back 5, 6, 7. Overall, redraft, not dynasty. Redraft. Dynasty, he's my number 1 or number 2 overall player. In Dynasty, it's Jamar Chase and Bijan, or Bijan and Jamar Chase. That's my order in Dynasty fantasy football. And I wouldn't be shy, I wouldn't be gun shy at all to take Bijan at number 2, no matter what ADP tells us or directs us to draft him. But in redraft, it's a different ball game. In redraft, he'll initially be right around 3.1, maybe 2.1 to 3.1. We don't really know. Anybody that says Smitty, he won't be at 3.1, or Smitty, he won't be at 2.8. You don't know that. We don't know where his ADP's really at this point, because Rookies are just now getting injected into the platforms that we mock draft on. Initially, people will forget the rookies are even there, which will affect their ADP because they won't get drafted high. Eventually, the platforms will update. They'll make updates that reflect the real true feelings of people and where they draft Bijan. Not to mention, Bijan's going to be a very not forgotten guy, but almost ignored as a first-round player until he finds his landing spot, because a lot of petrified Peters, every league has 3 or 4 of them, are going to hold the old,
We don't know where he's going. I'm going to stay away
from him. He's pretty
overvalued.
right now. There's 3 or 4 in every league, and by default, those 3 or 4 petrified Peters, negative Noahs, scared Sammys, they're going to help keep his ADP at bay to some degree. So Bijan's going to float naturally around 2.1 to 2.12. An occasional grandma league or 2 or grandma mock drafts will have him going around 3.1, 3.2. Some people will say, I'll take him at the end of 3. So don't tell me you know where his ADP is, because so much depends on if you're mock drafting with grandmas or if you're in a shark league that's starting up early. Bijan will float around 2.1 to 3.1 or 2.1 to 2.12, which means that currently you could probably get Burrow depending on how he finishes. If he wins the Super Bowl and people start jumping on the train, you could see Burrow easily going in the 2.2 to 2.12 area in early 2023 redraft mock drafts, which means that Bijan and Burrow might both live in round 2, making it difficult to do the triple stack I'm about to show you. This triple stack of Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, and Bijan is borderline capable. So at the 1.1 and the 2.12 and the 3.1, it's borderline capable. You might pull it off in 1 and 5 drafts right now. If you were to initiate your redraft league draft right now, you might pull it off. 2 months from now, 3 months from now, especially when landing spots are handed out via the NFL draft and people get reminded how good Bijan is, because he will be a top 12 pick in the 2023 NFL draft. That acknowledgement alone, that he's a top 12 pick instead of the old running backs go late. NFL teams don't value running back. NFL teams take RBs almost not even in round 1 anymore. RBs go at 27, 28, 29. We can envision where running backs don't get taken until the second round at all. Not one RB in today's running back climate in the NFL draft has to go in round 1. Bijan's different. Layman's and people that don't know what time it is will say,
Wait a minute, Smitty.
running backs don't go in the top 15 anymore, especially the top 10. Those people aren't versed in 2023 mock drafting, NFL mock drafting, because Bijan is going in the top 12. Bijan is getting mock drafted by scouts in the top 12. Bijan is generational. He's different. It won't change or flip back the early rookie running back drafting trend that used to litter the NFL draft, and you'd have 2 or 3 RBs going in round 1, 1 or 2 going in the top 15, 1 going in the top 10. That's the olden days. We are going to see a little glimpse of the olden days for one running back, Bijan. He will go top 12, and so people will be reminded he's special. And so this 3.1 or 2.8 or 2.1 value might not stick. It just all depends on who you're drafting with. So in a perfect world, in an early draft before August, if your redraft league somehow drafts really early, you could end up with this combination and destroy your league. These are my 3 Marsmen, if you haven't noticed.
He's on a shuttle to Mars. Mars men.
This is the most good-looking Mars men list we've ever had on the channel.
Boats dropping and spinning aimlessly in space.
Look at these 3 monsters. No possible fantasy football trio looks more dangerous than this trio right here in redraft. In Dynasty, good Lord, it's near impossible to imagine assembling this trio in a Dynasty startup, but in redraft, it is possible. In redraft, it's almost possible now. But the problem with the redraft leagues is you draft after the NFL draft. So what do we do if Bijan starts creeping up into this territory ADP-wise in redraft. What do we do if Joseph Burrow smokes his way with a cigar into the NFL Super Bowl and wins and climbs up? Let's say this is where the values start to climb. This is your worst case scenario come August probably. Bijan borderline first rounder, Burrow mid to mid-late second round value. Let's call it worst case scenario 16 overall for Burrow. Bijan 2.1, 2.2. Let's call that our worst case scenario August 1. Bijan climbs from 3.1 or 2.8 to 2.1, the first pick in round 2. Burrow is cemented right in the middle of round 2. Some people laugh at it.
Early QB, I can't believe you're falling for that.
The people that know what time it is, the people like us that love the pancake stack.
The stack above all stacks. It's time to drop the pancake emojis in the live chat.
We know the value of Burrow at 2.1. Don't tell anybody, but if I had to, I would draft Joe Burrow at the 12-13 turn bookend picks. Don't tell anybody, and we're going to do what we can to continue to steal them away. So we might get to a point where you've got to actually make a trade where you're trading your third and fourth or third and fifth round picks to make some moves. So let's say you get the 1.1 draft selection out of the hat. This would be your draft order. You get the 1.1, you got the back-to-back 2.12 and 3.1 picks. You got the 4.12 and 5.1 back-to-backs. And we're assuming you got the cojones to grab Jamar Chase at the 1.1 overall draft slot. The chuckles come rolling in. He
Took Jamar number 1.
and you're flexing. You're sitting there going, laugh all you want, you petrified Peters. Laugh all you want. Now, instead of getting Burrow at 2.12 like you planned, you know he's going around the middle of round 2. Now you got to figure out and concoct a trade to get the 2.1 up into the mid-second. You also know that Bijan, who at the beginning of February was going around this 3.1 or maybe late second round pick, or maybe right where Joe Burrow's going, right smack in the middle of round 2, because people are afraid. We don't know where he's going to land.
He's overrated.
There's enough petrified Peters, like I said earlier, 4 or 5, they're going to hold down his value enough to keep it in mid-round 2 to late round 2 for a while. Not in August, but maybe March, April, May, June, hopefully July. The landing spot's going to give it a nice little injection of value though, so know that. But let's call Burrow and Bijan mid-second round picks. So now we have to move our 3.1 and 2.12 into those draft slots. How do you do that? Very simply, you give your 2.1 up with, let's say, the 7.1, and maybe you even throw that pick in for free, which creates a void for you in round 7, but you're going to kick the can down the road later on maybe some kind of cleanup move at the end, and I'll show you. Stay tuned for that. So you've given up the 2.1, you've given up the 7.1, and you've moved your 2.12 up to get Joe Burrow in the mid-second, or maybe even a little higher than mid-second. Now you've got to move your 3.1 up to grab Bijan Robinson. So you surrender your 3.1, you give your 6.12 away. Maybe again for free, maybe you get something back, but let's just, to keep it simple, we'll say it's given up for free. Let's say you grab these 2 picks right around this territory, 2.4, 2.5. Now you've got Bijan. Now you've got Burrow. Now you've got Jamar Chase. You have the Mars men with your first 3 picks and 3 top 18 overall draft slots used to do that.
He's on a shuttle to Mars. Mars men.
And you had to use the 1.1 and 2 pretty early to mid second round draft slots to accumulate said Mars men.
He's on a shuttle to Mars. Mars men.
But you still have your 4.12. You still have quite possibly your 5.1. Yes, you quite arguably created 2 voids at 6 and 7, but you still have your 5.1.
But Smitty, I'm missing 2 picks. What about my depth?
Well, when you think about it, your first round pick's in round 1, your second round pick's in round 2, your third round pick is moved all the way up into round 2, your fourth round pick is intact, your fifth round pick is intact. You only have a void and a problem in round 6 and round 7. But maybe you give up your 8.12 and your ninth rounder in order to move this 8.12 into round 6, and you create a void here and potentially a void in the next round. So you've got a void, void, void. You got 3 voids in a row beginning in round 7, 8, and 9, but you're able to accumulate a 6th-round pick doing that, kicking the problem down the road, kicking the can down the road. By round 7, 8, 9, who cares? Round 7, 8, 9, people are drafting players that they may not even start. They're wide receiver 3s. I'll go to the waiver wire and fill my team up if I could start off with Jamar Chase, Bijan Robinson, Joe Burrow as my 1st, 2nd, and 3rd round picks, and I still have my 4th, 5th, and 6th round picks. I haven't missed a beat, and in fact move my 3rd and my 2nd up, and I haven't missed a beat until round 7, 8, 9. Big deal. You can try and kick the can down the road again with another move down, but at that point no one cares enough about 10th, 11th round picks that they're going to give you a 7th or 8th, and nobody's going to want to trade with you because you literally have an absolute monster of a squad that is based around 3 Mars men.
He's on a shuttle to Mars. Mars men
that are going to take over fantasy football in 2023. All while still having your original 4th and 5th round picks in this newly potentially acquired 6.5 or whatever it is. Go dominate your 2023 fantasy football drafts organically without doing any trades if you can pull it off. But as Bijan and Burrow start climbing ADPs, I've given you the solutions and tools to go get the Mars men stack, triple stack.
He's on a shuttle to Mars. Mars men.
That will have you winning leagues in 2023. This is my favorite draft strategy for all of 2023 fantasy football. Now go get it.
This is the Fantasy Football Show with your host, Smitty.